Welcome everyone to Black Men Speak. I am your co-host, the J.R. Stewart.
And I'm your co-host TD3. It is Wednesday night, May the 7th, 2025. And if it's Wednesday night,
It's certainly Black Men Speak. So let's give a shout out to Count Basie for providing our theme music. If you haven't already, please hit that like button. Help us with the YouTube algorithm. Subscribe to our channel. Even if you already subscribed, just to make sure that you're on the list. And hit that notification bell so when new shows are uploaded, you'll be notified in case you're not here watching it live. And with that being said, a shout out to Forest Films and our own studio for providing our studio for this platform. And with that being said, Tom, let's do what we do best, which is bring leading news and information about the Black community to social media.
all
No one
right,
does it better than Black Men Speak.
exactly. We've got a jam-packed show tonight for you folks. So go ahead and buckle up your seat straps because we are about to go. We're going to start off with a couple of folks that we have lost within the last couple of weeks that we would like to honor. Those of you who are probably old school basketball fans, probably my dad's generation, may know this fan. Some of the young folks probably not. Dick Barnett, an NBA Hall of Famer and two-time NBA champion, became an ancestor on April the 27th at the age of 88, known for his distinctive style and impact on the court. Barnett's legacy left an indelible mark on basketball history and lore. Barnett's career was defined by excellence, starting with his college career at Tennessee A&I, now Tennessee State University, where he led the Tigers to three consecutive NAIA championships from 1957 to 1959. His remarkable performance earned him All-American honors and two NAIA Tournament MVP awards. He was enshrined into the Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame in 2019 and was selected fifth overall in 1959 by the Syracuse Nationals. Barnett played for the Los Angeles Lakers before joining the New York Knicks in 1965. During his 9 years with the Knicks, Barnett averaged 15.6 points and played a pivotal role in their championship victories in 1970 and 1973. His contributions were immortalized when the team retired his number 12 jersey in 1990. So for those of us who are NBA fans and those within the Barnett family, we'd like to offer our condolences during this time of mourning for this great man who, quite frankly, did a lot for the sport. Next, we would like to honor Clarence O. Smith, the visionary co-founder of Essence Magazine, who passed away at the age of 92 on April the 21st, leaving behind an indelible mark on the world of media and culture. A pioneer in his field, Smith worked tirelessly to champion the voices and influences of Black women, reshaping the landscape of both the magazine industry and advertising. Launching Essence in 1970 alongside his co-founders Cecil Hollingsworth, Jonathan Blunt, and Edward Lewis, Smith played a pivotal role as president of Essence Communications, focusing on the advertising and marketing that fueled the magazine's success. He was instrumental in establishing the concept of Black women's market, bringing recognition to their immense spending power and cultural influence. Under Smith's leadership, major advertising began to invest in Black audiences with a newfound respect, marketing a significant shift in the industry. So those in the media industry and, of course, the family of Mr. Smith, we definitely want to offer our condolences to you for this grave loss, who helped build an institution. For those of you who are young folks who may go to the Essence Festival. Of course, every year. When we were growing up, there was no Essence Festival. Some of us may have had mothers or women in the house who read Essence magazine. And of course, we probably looked on that to see the pretty women on the Essence magazine cover, the inside.
They're in Jet magazine.
Yeah, Essence and Jet. But with that being said, of course, we would like to offer our condolences and for this grave loss. All right, Jimmy. Now let me see if we have anybody on the chat line. There we go. We have Miss Tanya Hall, one of our most, if not most loyal fan, Miss Tanya, who is here practically every week supporting and bringing the funk and bringing her interesting comments. We also have brother Frederick V. Roberts, Esquire.
Esquire.
Also a very loyal fan as well. And good evening to you from Prairie View, Texas. For those of you who are out there, if you have not done so, go ahead and jump in the chat line. The key is to make sure that you use your Gmail account or whatever email account you use to log in to YouTube, and then you should be able to easily get into the chat line so we can hear from you. There we go. We got cousin Audrey K.
Thank you, Booker. All right.
There we go. All right. We got 3. We need to get up to 5. Let's see if we can get a couple of folks out there to jump into the chat line so we can hear from you. And make sure you like this show. And of course, share this after it's over with so that you can, of course, share this content with.
Yeah, invite a friend, family member, co-worker, neighbor to come watch the show with you. So you guys have something interesting to talk about for the rest of the week.
All right, let's go ahead and move on to our stories. We've got a ton of stories to deal with, Jimmy. First, we have a follow-up story to something that we...
Actually, Tom, before we get started.
Okay.
Another shameless plug. Of course, you know, last week I plugged my current book, Angel Reborn.
Okay.
Which is still out there on Amazon. Need you guys to go out and order it. But just heads up, we have another book.
Another one?
In the J.R. Stewart multiverse that's coming out in probably about another 6 weeks. It's about a black force wielder, Tom. I'm not going to complain about George Lucas not representing us. I decided to take matters into my own hands. So here's a little short video clip of the black force wielder. I can't say Jedi because that's copyrighted and marketed. So
okay.
So here we go.
Let's see what we got. All right, so he got his lightsaber working for him.
Got a lightsaber, and it's a force wielding love story. So when it comes out, I'm going to show you love. Please go out and support me in this effort, so I can continue to bring black content to black people.
All right, is he going to be slashing some people with that?
Oh yeah, it's a good battle scene at the end. So you have to read the book to see it. But yeah, very good fight scenes at the end.
All right, good deal. You know how we love a good fight scene.
Yes.
All right.
I'm sorry, Tom, to interrupt. So go ahead with the stories.
All right, no problem. Let's go ahead. We're going to follow up with a story that we talked about a little bit earlier this year. Very sad situation where you had a young man at Southern University who ended up dying as a part of a ritual process. He was actually trying to go through the process with Omega Psi Phi Fraternity.
I was going to say, hopefully it's not Alpha Phi Alpha.
No, it's not Alpha Phi
Okay.
Alpha. But anyway, 3 members of the Omega Psi Phi Fraternity have been expelled following their alleged involvement with the hazing death at Southern University student Caleb Wilson. The fraternity's website lists Caleb McCrae and Kyle Thurman as expelled from the Beta Sigma chapter, and Isaiah Smith, the Dean of Pledges, as expelled from the Lambda.
The Dean of Pledges?
The Dean of Pledges, man.
The Dean's supposed to be protecting the line.
Well, this is true, but they do things a little bit different in some different organizations, Jimmy. I can't speak for
you can't get your Dean of Pledges to look out for you in bad shape.
You are, Jimmy. I mean, I know ours looked out for us, man. I cannot speak for everybody else.
Mine looked out for me at times, yes.
Yeah, good deal. But very, very sad situation.
Yeah.
This is the young man, Caleb Wilson, who lost his life during this process. And of course, our condolences, as we talked about before, go out to his family, to his loved ones, and of course, to the Southern community. Only 203 members have been expelled from the Omega Psi Phi fraternity since its founding in 1911. The expulsions occurred after the arrest of the 3 men in connection with Wilson's death on February the 27th during a fraternity ritual. McCrae faces charges of criminal hazing and manslaughter, while Thurman and Smith faced misdemeanor hazing charges. Southern University confirmed that all 3 suspects were students at the time of the incident at their university. The university has suspended all Greek life activities and issued a cease and desist order for the fraternity chapter involved. The chapter's expulsions were announced following their annual district meeting, which basically is a state meeting in New Orleans. The case has drawn national attention to the hazing practices and the responsibility of fraternities and sororities, for that matter, in ensuring the safety of their members. At a recent news brief, the Baton Rouge Police Department chief said his agency learned of Wilson's death from medical staff at a local hospital where a group of young men had dropped him off. I don't even want to interpret what dropped him off looked like.
You know what that means? They opened the door, they dragged his body out to the front of the hospital and took off.
Yeah, that's just a very, very, very sad situation. I can't imagine being a parent, and having to go through something like this, Jimmy. And, again, all of our organizations were founded based upon service and leadership, and things evolve. Sometimes people lose context as to what they're doing and why they're doing it and the way that they're doing it. But there is nothing worth losing your life for. There's nothing worth getting beat to a pulp on. And we just, we will obviously probably be tracking. We will be tracking the cases for these young men. And of course, we know the family is seeking justice, but just a very sad situation. And just wanted to make sure that we followed up on this story to give you the latest on that, and understand that we promote the healthy development of young men and young women in our D9 or Divine Nine organizations.
Well, just a quick comment, Tom, has been undergrad chapter president for Fraternity chapter, been a dean of pledgees, been very active with my undergrad chapter back in the day. But I agree with you. No, there are no Greek letters worth losing your life for. So you have to exercise some common sense also. When things get too far, it's okay for you to walk away, to say time out, just walk away. You may catch some hell for it afterwards, but like I said, you have to understand when things are getting too far, because it's your life that's on the line, not theirs. And if you lose your life in the process, they're still living. They may go to jail, they may get expelled from school, but they're still among the living and you're dead. So, so always exercise caution and care when you're pledging a fraternity or sorority. And if you think things are going too far, call time out and just walk away. Say enough is enough. I'm not going to participate anymore. And you can always ask for forgiveness tomorrow. But at least you're still alive.
That's true.
What's our next story?
All right, Jimmy. Our next story has to do with one of your favorite people, Miss Letitia James, and the Trump administration targeting Letitia James in New York.
Big Tish James.
Yeah, one of your favorite people, Letitia James. Donald Trump administration is accusing New York Attorney General Letitia James of mortgage fraud and has made a criminal referral to the Department of Justice seeking federal prosecution. So he's taking it into his own hands. Officials for the Federal Housing Finance Agency alleged James falsified bank and property records to receive better loan agreements. James won a civil case, by the way, against Trump in 2023 that accused him of overvaluing his properties in order to take out loans with favorable terms. Trump is currently appealing against those judgments. No charges have been officially filed yet, the White House confirmed, adding that more details would follow if the Justice Department took action. FHFA Director William Putty accused James of misrepresenting a building in New York as a 4-unit structure instead of 5 to get a better loan deal. Putty also alleged that James claimed a property in Norfolk, Virginia as her primary residence in 2023 when she was a top state prosecutor to secure a lower interest rate on a loan. Mortgages for primary residents typically come with better terms. Trump's family business was also found liable in 2023, interestingly enough, of falsifying records and financial statements in order to get better terms in loans and insurance deals. In the case brought by James, a judge ruled the Trump organization was liable for overvaluing the penthouse at Trump Tower in New York by claiming that it was 3 times its actual size, among other allegations. During his campaign, Trump promised to seek get back against many of his perceived political enemies, including former President Joe Biden. He has revoked the security clearances, which also allows people to access classified material, including those of Letitia James and Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg, who brought criminal hush money case against Trump as well. So it looks like Miss Letitia James obviously is in a little bit of hot water and is just getting a little attention right now.
Okay, so give a little background on this. This is not initiated by anyone in the Trump administration. So here's what happened. You have a financial auditor who he's a Democrat in New York, And what he does is he just goes down the list of politicians, and he does a forensic financial audit on them. And it doesn't matter if you're Republican or Democrat. He just has a list of names. He's just going down the list. He just happened to get to Letitia's name, and when he did the financial audit on her forensic audit, and he found these inconsistencies. One loan application where she lists her father as her husband in order to rather than just list him as a co-signer, she lists him as her husband to get to use his credit to get a lower interest rate. Another case, one of her buildings, like you said, is a 5-unit building. It has 6 meters, but she listed it as 4 units on her hemp application, so she can get, because 4 units still qualify, 5 units wouldn't. So in order to get the lower interest rate and deferred payments under the hemp program, she listed it and filed as a 4 unit instead of 5. And then another property in, like I said, Virginia that she purchased and leased out, which nothing wrong with that. I mean, you get your property owner, Tom, you have several properties, so you know how the program goes. You don't get a favorable rate on that second, third, and fourth house that you plan to use for investment, but it's not impossible, but she listed that as her primary residence so she can get the lower interest rate, basically cheating the banks that's at that point. So, but this was all found by a Democrat who then reported the information to the New York Post, and then the course of Federal Housing Administration got hold of the information. They looked into it. They found that this was correct. They sent the referrals over to the Department of Justice. Now Pam Bundy is investigating and subpoenaing the records. So they do have a dare to right, and she's not going to be able to talk her way out of it. And I would imagine, Tom, that she should probably do the right thing and just resign with some dignity, and hopefully it goes away, and don't try to fight this, because she's actually dead to wrong. She's dead to right what she did. She's wrong. She's prosecuted other people for doing this. Trump is not the only person that she's prosecuted for mortgage fraud. So she's done this in New York to other people. So some payback, I guess, is warranted in this case. When you live in glass houses, Tom, you can't be walking around with stones in your pocket, throwing rocks at other people.
Unless you've got a lot of power and you've got the biggest pulpit in the world. And that's how,
a big one, Tom.
and that is how Donald Trump, who goes around, of course, calling everybody who doesn't agree with him a crook, which, of course, is what he did with her as well. But at the end of the day, I think she has probably as likely of a chance as resigning as Donald Trump resigned when people were asking him to step down for things that they were chasing him after. So I think it'll be a pretty interesting story, Jimmy, but I doubt very seriously if she's just going to be resigning voluntarily. Just like the guy at 1600 ain't going to be resigning for nothing.
Who was the state prosecutor over in Maryland, the young lady who did the same thing, falsified a loan?
Right.
Phone, she's lucky. She was found guilty, but the judge did not sentence her to jail. But Tom, this is a serious crime, and it's not just where she did it one time, where you can say I made a mistake. Who hasn't listed their father as their husband on a loan application? I didn't, my wife didn't, but hey, that's another story. But she did this habitually. She did this multiple times. She committed fraud. So it wasn't just a one-time case where she was just trying to get over on the system and game it a little bit. She's a habitual mortgage frauder. So she's done it multiple times. So, and I guarantee you, if the DOJ indict her, which looks like they're subpoenaing the information, they're going to take it to a grand jury, she probably will be indicted.
Yeah, I think that's probably a pretty good chance she does get indicted.
So if she gets indicted, there's no way she could be Attorney General for the state of New York and be AG and being under indictment by the feds at the same time. She'll have to resign. If not, the governor, Holcomb, should fire her as Attorney General, but she can't stay in that job being accused and investigated, and because then she'd have split loyalties. And
well, maybe Jimmy, she should just start calling it a witch hunt every day. And
that's what she's doing. She's trying to do that, Tom, by calling it a witch hunt.
Calling it a witch hunt. And
but you're not going to embarrass Trump away. There's nothing she can say at this point that he's got the goods on her. She should call Eric Adams and say, "Hey, Eric, what should I do at this point?" He'll probably tell her.
What? Eric, that you bring up a very good point, Jimmy. I mean, if Eric Adams can go and kiss the ring, if she can bend down to kiss the ring, which I just don't see her kiss the ring. Eric Adams clearly kissed the ring.
They had Eric Adams dead to right. They had him nailed to a coffin, Tom. So they had him dead to right. They had the evidence against him, and if he went to court, he was going to go down.
Yeah.
But like I said, go ask Eric Adams what should you do now, and
And
that
you know
is
what?
go kiss the ring.
If she asks Eric Adams, he gonna tell her go kiss the ring.
That's right. And go kiss the ring and make this go away. I mean, it's simple. Say I'm sorry. I was wrong. Withdraw the judgment. Undo what do everything you can to undo what you did. In fact, the appellate court in New York is probably going to undo the judgment anyway. So all this is going to be for naught in the end. So go ahead and kiss the ring. Say you're sorry. Do everything you can to undo it, and then have these charges go away and go on with your life. Trying to be the resistance and fighting this time may land you in prison.
Well, we'll see. I think she probably has a little bit more intestinal fortitude than Eric Adams does. So I think she's going to probably go the hard route in order to get to whatever that end is going to be, because Eric Adams, he kissed the ring and he bent over it in order to do it. I don't think that's in Letitia James's heart. But we will definitely keep an eye on this.
It doesn't seem like it, Tom, but good luck to the sister, man. I'm just saying, if you when you go after the 800-pound gorilla in the room, Tom, you better take him out, because if you don't, pay back and be a mother.
Yeah, this is true. This is true. Keep fighting.
What's our next story, T?
All right, next story is, I found this last week that was pretty interesting. It looks like Trump is clearing the way. I know I think we talked about, or maybe we didn't talk about Trump's effort in order to give Doges access to the Treasury system in order to eradicate fraud and corruption. The Trump administration has recently asked the Supreme Court to suspend a lower court orders restricting affiliates of Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency, aka Doge, from accessing American citizens' sensitive Social Security Administration data, arguing in a filing that the judicial order limits President's executive authority. Sauer urged the court to lift an injunction issued by U.S. District Judge Ellen Hollander, blocking Doge from accessing the data, which includes Social Security numbers, medical records, tax, and banking information. While the Supreme Court considers a more permanent stay, the Trump administration is seeking an immediate pause on Hollander's orders, arguing that the order prevents the Musk-led agency from carrying out its stated function of detecting waste and fraud. The full Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals has already denied the Trump administration's request for a stay in this matter in a 9-6 decision. The panel backed the district court's decision to block Doge from accessing the highly personal data. The panel also said the government has yet to prove that Doge is unable to complete its work with anonymized and redacted data that it currently has access to. Since starting its work in January, Doge has faced at least 11 lawsuits targeting its efforts and to access large swaths of Americans' personal information. Many of the lawsuits argue Doge is violating the Privacy Act of 1974, which heavily regulates what information about American citizens federal agencies can store and who can access the information. A federal judge in March blocked Doge and its affiliates from accessing sensitive personal information from the U.S. Department of Education, Office of Personal Management, and Department of Treasury.
Okay, so on the surface, this looks like a privacy fight. It is really not a privacy fight, Tom. What this is really about is that you have millions of accounts. I don't know if it's millions, but you have a lot of accounts within Social Security where the government funnels. You have black op organizations, operations that have accounts on Social Security where they funnel money through, and they just bleed the money out of the legal channels. And it's not just Social Security, but this is across the government. So if you try to budget and line item black op items, operations, they could be exposed because it's hard to keep secrets in Washington. Even though the Russians may not know exactly what an operation is, but they can kind of tell based on how much money you're spending on it, how serious the program is, or how close it is to being completed, or how effective it is. And so this is where the fight is that a lot of money is being bled out of the government through Social Security, through other benefits programs, to fictitious people that don't exist, to accounts all over the world, to different accounts, where they bleed out millions and billions of dollars, and this money goes unaccounted for and get to be used for organizations and operations. God knows what they're doing with it. So the powers that be are really fighting hard to keep from doing any kind of audit on any of this money, claiming that this is a security violation. When does the government damn care about your identity and whether they know exactly how they write the check every month? So they know how much money you get for Social Security, they know how much money you get in disability, they know how much money you get in other welfare benefits. They can do the audit and count and add it up. You know, they know about your taxes. You know, try cheating on your taxes long term and see if they don't catch you when they do an audit. But yet, when it comes to doing an audit overall,
unless you're the president, of course.
Huh?
Unless you're the president, of course.
Okay, well, I mean, even the president gets audited. He's been audited himself, not as president, but as a private business person. But presidents generally don't get. I mean, presidents normally get audited anyway, but there's not much to audit when their salary is publicly known, and they don't have a bunch of deduction. But my point is, Tom, is that the reason this is such a fight is not about the fact that the courts care about your security, not the fact that liberal organizations care about your security and identification. What they care about is they don't want the money to be cut off. That's what the hoopla is about. So those who are benefiting from the money somehow are going to fight to keep it in place, and for the government not to clean it up. And Trump and Doge and Elon Musk, who are not supported by these organizations and people and operations, are basically saying, hey, we're going to come and cut the money off as soon as we find it, which is going to hurt a lot of people. So that's where it is. So the battle continues. I think in the end, when the courts finally rule on it, Supreme Court is going to have to rule, because there's no way that the Secretary of the Social Security Administration can't look at the payment rolls and see where the checks are going.
Agreed.
When the Treasury Department or the Secretary of the Treasury can't look at the check writing system and see who the checks are going to, there's a problem there, Tom. How are you the Treasury Secretary for the United States, and you can't go look at the rolls and see where checks are going when billions of dollars are rolling out every day, and there's no accountability? Nobody can audit it. Nobody can tell you where the money is going. And when you have people on the payroll who are 150 years old, which I'm told there's over 1 million people that are over 100 years old collecting Social Security, there's something wrong that you didn't put new younger people into the system to cover the old ones that you should have taken out of the system. They just put them in there and leave them in there for life, and the money goes to God knows who.
Well, I'll say this much, Jimmy. I mean, there are definitely some merits to eradicating fraud and waste and corruption. I guess what, a lot of folks have issues with is the fact that you have a private citizen, and that's what Elon Musk is.
He works for the government. He's not a private. He's a private citizen who works for the government.
Who was elected by? When you say he was
Tom, we have.
I'm sorry. Who is he employed by? If he's working for the government?
He works for the White House. He's a temporary employee, which means he's able to. There's no confirmation for it. He's an appointed person.
Appointed by president who
he can work for
campaign bankroll.
Right. He's capable of working for 100 business days in a temporary status. So in May this month, his 100 days are coming to an end. So he'll have to quit the position that he's
involuntarily. So
yeah, but he can be reappointed for another 100 days. So, but yeah, he works for the White House. I mean, there are a lot of staff.
He works for the White House at the will of the president. But the reality, but the problem is this: the reality of it is, most people have a problem with. Okay, whether you want to call yourself, I'm working for the president because you were appointed by the president for whatever reason. A lot of people have a problem with a private citizen, a guy who's going to go back to doing whatever he does, having access to the most sensitive data that they have within the United States database. Let me
ask you this, Tom, what other person did they have a problem with? So administrations appoint people, special counsels, czars. Last time I checked, Biden had over 20 czars. God knows what they're doing, and they were just appointed. No Senate confirmation. They weren't elected by anyone, and no one seemed to have a problem with border czars, business czars, this czar, that czar, these special appointments by the president until Trump appointed one, and he didn't even do a czar because czars are full-time permanent. This is a temporary employee. So
Agreed.
So being a temporary employee, people should be happy with the fact that he's not going to be around long term. He has other business interests. He'll
Of
do
course.
a job. He'll come in. He'll do a job temporarily, and then he'll leave.
Agreed. But none of those people that you were talking about who were appointed by President or former President Biden had access to the Treasury system.
We don't know what they had access to, Tom. They're at the White House.
Again,
we don't know what they had access to.
You're probably right. But in order for him to get access or to request access, he had to go to the Supreme Court, which I don't recall at any point in time that Joe Biden or anyone else prior to that went to the Supreme Court in order to give someone who's going to be a private citizen access to the most sensitive information that a person can have, including their Social Security information, their tax records, etc. That's the issue that a lot of people are uncomfortable with, is that you have somebody who's going to be a private citizen who is going to have, folks who are employed for him who has access to the most sensitive information.
Once again, Tom, if you're 65, 75, 85 years old, you've been on Social Security, collecting your benefits, no one cares. No one's coming about you. What they're looking at is people who are 150 years old, checks have been going out for 70 years, and no one knows if they're alive or dead or what, but the checks continue to go out. And last time I checked, the oldest living person on record, now some Chinese person who's 115. So how do we have people who are over 115 years old still collecting benefits? So you have to be able to flag those accounts, go look at these people, see who they are, and track them down. You need their personal information. There's no way to do an audit of the Social Security where the checks are going out when you flag people where it seems suspicious and without looking at their personal information. I mean, what's the point? How can you do an audit if that's the case? It's like when Congress wants to do an audit of Fort Knox. They say, hey, we want to go there and see the gold, because there's rumor that there's no gold at Fort Knox. And you get turned down, and the bureaucracy says, no, you can't come. No one can take a look. Well, how in the world do we know that there's any gold at Fort Knox? We just have to take their word for it. How do we know there's no cheating in Social Security? Well, we know there's cheating in every government program, be it welfare, be it HIMP, KIMP, all these different acronyms they have for different programs. We know there's a great deal of cheating. Medicaid, Medicare being ripped off by doctors.
Even in the, of course, in the Department of Defense, there are billions of dollars.
Yes, so the only way you can clean this up.
But let the people who are responsible for oversight of that do their jobs, and if they're not doing their jobs, replace them.
Tom, they're not doing their jobs. You can't fire them because it's hard to fire civil workers.
You know what? There are a lot of civil service workers who have been, of course, fired. So the reality
on top of that, the other part of this is that Congress bears some responsibility because they control the purse string. They need to just stop approving money. But if they try to say, well, we think there's $10 billion being wasted, so we're going to cut $10 billion out of the program, then what happens with the liberal news? They just come out and say, well, Trump is cutting Social Security by $10 billion. People who need the money. They'll put the big scare story out there. So as a result, no one's going to touch these programs, even though we know there's a lot of fraud, waste, and abuse. Everybody talks about it. But it was only the orange man who's willing to do something about it, and he's catching hell trying to clean this up. So rather than all of us get behind it, because it's our taxpayer money, it's not theirs.
Agreed.
This is money they collect from all of us, or they print it up, which is another indirect tax against all of us because it makes our dollars worthless when they just print the money up, or they just take it from us. But either way, they have all the money that they want to fund these wasteful programs. And they all talk about how wasteful it is, but Tom, none of them willing to do anything about it because it's too politically incorrect. You have one person who's willing to take it on and try to clean it up. I'm not saying there's not going to be some mistakes made. Yes, there will be. But if there are mistakes made, just go ahead and fix them as rapidly as you can. But it needs to be done. This audit needs to be done. All these programs need to be looked at. All these suspicious checks that are going out need to be stopped. And if somebody hollers, if you got a check coming to you $1 million a year and your check get cut off, you can either holler and say, hey, what's going on? Or you can say it was good while it lasted.
All that being said, there's some merit to your argument. People don't want private citizens having their information because if that person, it's not a matter, but if or when that person gets compromised, access to their data, that spooks people. And the reality
what person can have access to it? Everybody's a private citizen.
I understand.
So who gets to have access?
Let the Treasury Department handle what the Treasury Department.
The Secretary of the Treasury can't even look at these accounts.
I understand that. So then why should Elon Musk?
Tom, because somebody has to do it. So I'm asking you, who's going to do it? The Secretary of the Treasury can't look at these accounts. So who's going to do it then? If you say private, everybody's a private citizen. There's no such thing as a public citizen.
What I'm suggesting to you is that Elon Musk shouldn't.
Then who should it be then? Name somebody.
Let the Treasury Department do their job.
The Treasury Secretary can't do it.
Let Social Security do their job. But
the Social Security Administrator can't do it.
Jimmy, all I'm saying is this. Donald Trump, number one, talks too much and he talks too loud. And so the reality of it is he may eventually learn if he wants to get something done.
What you're saying is we just keep the status quo.
No,
let the fraud continue.
I'm not saying that.
Because nobody currently under law can take a look at this. Nobody.
What authority does Elon Musk have to have access to everybody's most sensitive information?
He doesn't care about everybody's information. He cares about the cheaters.
So then why should he have access to everybody's information?
Because there's no way to find the cheaters unless you look at all the information. I can't just say, there's a cheater over there without looking at the account. I have to look at all the accounts and spot the disparities and say, oh, that account right there doesn't look right. So let's take a look at that one. But that doesn't mean I have to compare that against good accounts in order to find the cheats. You can't do an audit without looking at the accounts. Nobody can look. So if I was going to build a system where I can cheat and defraud the system and get away with it, this is the exact system I would put in place. Put a system in where nobody can look at the checks going out, have the checks just coming to me, billions of dollars going out, nobody knows where they're going, and then by law, nobody can go take a look at the account. Perfect system to steal.
That's why they have consultants and contractors, Jimmy.
You don't have anybody. Tom, you just said private citizens shouldn't look at the account. Those consultants and people that you're talking about are all private citizens.
I understand.
Elon Musk can't do it.
But this is the problem. When you talk about someone like Elon Musk, it's a conflict. It looks like a conflict of interest.
And that's what I'm asking you. Okay, then who then? Name somebody. If you don't want Elon, okay, let's get somebody else. Some from Risk Accountant. I don't care who it is. Price Waterhouse, one of the big six.
Talk to Price Waterhouse. Talk to Arthur Anderson.
They're all private citizens. Tom, you just said private citizens should have access to the account.
Jimmy, you're going sideways on this. All I'm saying is Elon Musk, who bankrolled and elected Donald Trump, should not be that guy. That's
okay, but you don't know who the guy is. And you create an impossible situation where it can't be a private citizen when everybody's a private citizzen.
Jimmy,
so I don't know who's supposed to do it.
Okay, that means Jimmy, why don't you or I get access to everybody's information then?
If we were doing the audits, we would need access to it in order to do the audit.
I understand that. And so if you and I were with Price Waterhouse,
it was our job to do
and we contracted with the government to do a job in order to do the investigation and get back billions of dollars for the taxpayers public, I'm with that.
Somebody would just say Tommy and Jimmy shouldn't have access either. They're private citizens. But Jimmy voted for Trump, so he shouldn't be qualified. We don't know who Tommy voted for, but if he's a liberal Democrat, he shouldn't have it. Everybody can make a case for some private citizen not having access. There is nobody that's going to fit the criteria where everybody's going to be okay with that person having access. That's what I'm saying. If I rob banks, you can't go and investigate. You can't look at the evidence. You can't look at the tape. You can't take eyewitness testimony. Boy, with a perfect system, I'd just be robbing banks all over because you can't investigate it. That's what we have now. You're able to rob the public system, get away with it. Nobody can investigate.
Answer me this question. What is Elon Musk's interest in having access?
To help find the fraud, waste, and abuse that's been
why is that important? And why is that important to him?
I don't know what his motivation is. He just want to help the country, Tom. It's not like he needs the money. He's the richest man in the world. What is he going to take your Social Security benefit and say, "Oh, Tom gets $2,000 a month from Social Security"?
You know what people with Jimmy? What people with money?
I'm going to ask you. What are you going to do with millions of accounts?
What people with money want?
He's going to sell you a Tesla,
and we need to go to our next story because we got about 3 or 4 more. What people with money want is more money.
He's the richest person in the world. What
I
are you sell you
understand.
a Tesla?
Well,
He's gonna look at your account.
A little bit less is January the 20th, but
Okay, he's gonna look at your account. He's gonna try to sell you $1 million seat on SpaceX.
People with money want more money.
Okay, look at his businesses. He has SpaceX, $1 million to ride SpaceX.
People with money want more money.
He has Tesla, $80,000 to sell you a Tesla. Nobody on Social Security is going to be able to afford one. He has that mine company where they do the integration. That's $1 million for those implants. There's nobody collecting Social Security that can afford to do any business with Elon Musk. None. So there's nothing he can do with the information that's going to enrich himself. Absolutely none, Tom. If he was selling lollipops,
maybe other countries, Jimmy. But let's go ahead. If we got 20 minutes, we got 20 minutes. All right, Jimmy. Make sure we get to some state business next. Anyone who manufactures, mails, or delivers abortion pills to someone in the state of Texas could possibly be sued for up to $100,000 under a bill that passed the Texas Senate in a 1911 vote last week. The bill, considered the most wide-ranging crackdown on abortion-inducing drugs in the country, is expected to face a harder road in the House. The bill expands on the private enforcement of mechanism Texas used to outlaw most abortions in 2021 by allowing private lawsuits against anyone who mails or delivers abortion pills, including medication manufacturers. It also expands when and how people can sue for wrongful death after an abortion and goes after internet providers that host information on abortion pills and financial services that facilitate transactions. After Texas banned abortion, many people turned to online pharmacies and out-of-state providers to obtain medication to terminate their pregnancies, despite the bans. Republicans have tried to crack down on the practice throughout lawsuits and legislation, but this bill, Senate Bill 2880, would give the state a whole new set of tools to tackle the issue. The bill, as written, cannot be challenged in state court before it goes into effect and would allow someone to sue a state court judge for $100,000 if they rule the law is unconstitutional. The bill is also designed to disincentivize lawyers from bringing constitutional challenges against the legislation by making them financially liable for legal fees for both sides in almost all cases.
Okay, Tom, so let me clear up the misconceptions once again. So I know how these stories are presented. And first of all, you can't outlaw abortion when the Supreme Court's already ruled on abortion. So some abortions are legal, and no state can create a law that infringes on federal law. It's in federal law supreme. So let's stop the state of Texas passing these laws that prohibit abortion. So they have.
That's not what this is.
That's not what this is. What this is this is add on to a law that they already did before, where basically allow care providers to be sued. So if you're a doctor and you perform an abortion in Texas, I believe you have to have hospital privileges. You have to be within so many miles of a hospital in case something goes wrong. And it does open you up for a lawsuit in Texas. Anybody can sue you. It's not just the person who you gave the abortion to. It's not just the father or the mother. It's not some family member. But it does open you up for anyone to be able to file a lawsuit against you, which is how they plan to keep doctors from performing. Not that the abortion is illegal. It's just it opens you up to liability if you perform one. So the same thing if you're going to restrict for social good, because the state of Texas is deemed that abortion is a bad business for the state. It goes against our public interest. So if you can't perform one in a hospital, then they certainly don't want you to be performing one by appeal.
Correct.
So all they're doing is extending the law they have already passed, that's already had Supreme Court challenges and survived, to say that if you provide an appeal to anyone to have an abortion, you are now opening yourself up for a lawsuit.
Correct.
And if you're a lawyer or a judge who's challenging this or ruling against this law, you too open you up civilly for a lawsuit. Not that you can't file a lawsuit. If you want to, you can. You can take it into court and challenge it if you want to. And if you're a judge out there, you can rule against someone bringing a lawsuit or rule in their favor however you want, if you want to, at your own peril. But if you do so, you open yourself up financially.
Yes. Yeah. All right, Jim, that's cool. That's
But
cool.
you know, hey, you got to be
All that being said, of
you
course,
may want to take the risk. Tom, if it's so important to you, if you're a judge out there and you pro abortion, and someone brings a lawsuit to your court, you got deep enough pockets. Hey, if you get sued personally, go for it.
exactly. But all this does, it provides a little bit more clarity, especially because, of course, you have a lot of folks who are traveling out of state and, or, of course, getting abortion pills from out of state. And what this does, it provides a little bit more specificity and puts a little bit more teeth into the legislation.
Southwest Airlines, Tom, they fly every day.
I
So
understand that. Exactly.
they fly
Exactly.
to abortion states every day.
Exactly. And so all it's doing, of course, is just, making more money for other states, so to speak, for folks who can afford to do that. All right, Jimmy, let's go to our next
What's our next story?
All right, next story, also coming out of the Texas state legislature. A bill that would ban social media for minors, among other sweeping measures, has gained traction in the Texas state legislature as lawmakers prepare to take a tougher stance on online safety. Lawmakers have suggested several initiatives to address the dangers affecting Texas children, but among those progressing through the lower chamber include House Bill 186. It would prohibit minors from creating accounts on social media sites and require age verification for new users. In addition to restrictions on access, the bill would grant parents the right to request the deletion of their child's social media account, and a company must comply within 10 days. The bill passed the House with 116 votes the same day as lawmakers passed House Bill 499, which would require social media platforms to have a warning label concerning the association between a minor's social media usage and significant mental health problems. Both of these bills are expected to receive support from the more conservative Senate, meaning new rules on social media platforms like TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram might be implemented later this year or early next year. If these bills do become law, it is expected to face lawsuits from tech companies who have consistently challenged government mandates on the industry, saying it's unconstitutional under the First Amendment free speech right. House Bill 4456, which would require social media platforms to verify the age of account holders, and House Bill 4338, which would require social media platforms to create and maintain third-party safety software to manage online interactions for children, are still pending in committees. These bills are part of a larger effort that Texas and other states have undertaken over the past few years to mitigate the harmful effects of social media. Studies show that 95% of youth aged 13 to 17 report using social media. In more than a third state, they use social media almost constantly. Nearly 40% of children aged 8 to 12 use social media, despite most platforms requiring a minimum of 13 to sign up, according to a study by the U.S. Surgeon General.
Okay, Tom, so I don't have a problem with this law. I hope it goes through and become a test case for the nation, because parents should have the right to know what their kids are doing on social media. Last time I checked, there's not one social media program where you can open an account on without having to sign an end user agreement that we all have to, nobody reads it because it's damn near 100 pages long, that gives them the right to collect all the goddamn information they want on you in your device. We're not giving you anything in return. And you have to click OK or agree to it. That's a contract, Tom.
Yep.
And your children don't. Last time I checked, until you reach the age of majority, which is 18 in this country, you can't sign a contract. You can't buy cigarettes. You can't vote. You can't buy liquor. You can't get a tattoo. You can get a driver's license with a learning permit if you have with some restrictions placed on it. But for the most part, Tom, we don't allow children, except when it comes to social media, to click and sign a contract, an end user agreement, which is a contract. And the social media companies are fighting this. Good luck. I hope they lose. Parents should have a right to dictate what platforms their kids are on and what they are watching. We know how addictive, in fact, I read 2 articles, and just to make sure that this is still the same trend, you know who the largest employer of neuroscientists are? The social media companies. Not web developers, not Java programmers, not AI programmers. Neuroscientists, the social media companies are the largest employer of neuroscientists. Why? Because they look for every way to get you addictive to their program. This is a drug, Tom, being imposed on our kids. And I can't believe there are folks out there who are opposed to regulating and bringing these social media companies in line. For Black Men Speak, we don't require you give us any information. There's no end user agreement before you can watch our show. We hope that you're age appropriate, and we don't say anything. We don't curse. There's no profanity. There's no sexual anything on this show. So it's safe for kids. And if it's not, if we're covering a subject that's not safe for kids, then we say that. We put the warning out there to cover your ears or to disable the feed for that segment. But for the most part, Tom, these social media companies need to be reeled in. And so I hope this law passed, and then I hope the rest of the nation gets in line.
Well, Jimmy, it'll be very interesting to see how this goes, because we understand that these companies, with the amount of money that they have, that's why they have lobbyists who put money and grease the pockets of legislators in order to get what they want, and that's really how things get done in this country and around the world. I would agree with you on it. I think that we are in a mental health catastrophe as a direct result of social media, and the reality of it is parents should be very dictatorial in terms of what they allow their children to have access to. But the reality of it is, a lot of people don't do that, unfortunately, Jimmy. And of course, a lot of our children suffer as a result of that later in life, being antisocial, having to drug themselves with not just social media, but other things as they age in life, Jimmy. And it is a real thing that by the time you realize the impact of it is too late. And to your point, these countries, they employ a lot of people who understand the impact that social media has on their brains so that those kids can come addicted to it, just like the government and the Food and Drug Administration knows very clearly the addictive impact of sugar, the addictive impact of salt and caffeine, but it is very legal. And so with that being said, we will see what happens with this. But the government knows that caffeine, sugar, and other ingredients are a legal drug, but that doesn't prevent them from
the Orange Man and his administration is trying to do something about that by taking the dyes and pesticides and plastic out of our food. That's another story. I just want to say, Tom, in one of the stories that I was reading on this, which I thought was interesting, they specifically mentioned Google and their execs and their higher-ups who do not allow their kids to access any of their programming, Tom, or their search engine or anything Google related. Their kids are not allowed to even touch this. So you know how dangerous it is when you don't allow your kids to be on the platform, but you pushing it out to other people, other folks' kids.
But those other folks' kids are their consumers, so they don't really care.
I guess they don't, Tom. What's our next story?
Next story, Jimmy. Trump tariff on films made outside of the United States. This came out. Very interesting story. We'll see how it turns out. But Donald Trump last Sunday proposed a 100% tariff on foreign-made films, saying the policy would counteract financial incentives that have drawn Hollywood producers overseas. We want movies made in America again, Trump said in a post on social media. Movie studios have increasingly moved production abroad in recent years as a means of cutting costs. Industry analysts assert, but it remains unclear how adding a tariff would succeed in boosting domestic production. Instead, it would send costs soaring. Analysts say it would also reduce the number of films produced each year and potentially increase ticket prices. They explained, essentially, what Trump is trying to do is make it untenable for U.S. movie studios to produce movies abroad. And the whole idea is that it will stimulate production in the United States. But it would cost more money for film production in the United States. Where is that money going to come from? The rise of streaming services over the past decade fostered a surge in demand for scripted television and movies, as well as a spike in spending among studios. In 2022, 599 scripted series aired in the U.S., registering more than double the 288 scripted series in 2012. The growth ebbed in the aftermath of the COVID-19 pandemic, but the overall production rate still surpasses what it was a decade ago. Alongside that growth, the provision of production incentives worldwide surged nearly 40% over the past 7 years, as nations vied for about $250 billion in global content spending. But the incentives drawing production away from Hollywood aren't all originating overseas. A slew of states that have also boosted financial incentives to compete with movie-making mainstays, California and New York. COVID-19 lockdown sent studios seeking alternative locations, as did widespread labor strikes in 2023. and increasing global audiences with streaming subscriptions. In social media posts on this past Sunday, Trump sharply criticized the production of Hollywood films overseas, claiming a trend that devastated parts of the United States.
Okay, so once again, don't have a problem with his effort to bring this development back to the U.S. In fact, Texas is, believe it or not, one of the big beneficiaries of movie production because there's a lot. We do a lot of CGI here, believe it or not. There's a lot of computing capacity, so a lot of the special effects computing. But there are some films like Landman is shot over in Fort Worth. So there are a lot of series that are shot here in Texas. But we do more of the behind the scenes stuff as opposed to more of the in front of the camera stuff. But if you're going to bring stuff back to Texas, other states that have studios, production companies, I hear 50 Cent is opened up a studio in Louisiana. Cat Williams bought a military base
Sure did.
of his studio
Yep.
down in Mississippi.
Yep.
Tyler Perry got something in Georgia, big studio. Hey, if this means more production brought back to the United States as a result of this, okay, more power to them. I don't have a problem with that. That's more jobs for us, an opportunity to keep money in house. So if it's going to cost a little bit more, Tom, it already costs $50 for me and the wife to go to the movies now. How much more expensive can it be?
A lot more if you add 100% tariff to
it. We paying the outrageous movie ticket, and we're trying to go doing matinee and ask for military discounts and whatever the other discounts we can get. But then the thing of popcorn is
well,
10,
Jimmy,
12 bucks.
You got to put a sandwich in your pocket or something, Jimmy. I don't know.
Yeah, Tom, I guess when it gets colder, we can sneak a two-piece with a pepper into the movie theater with a drink. But in the summertime, you have to dress a little lean. It looks funny when you dress in warm up and hoodies and try to stuff food to bring with you to the movies.
Oh, Jimmy, so, you may have to go to the buffet before you get to the film. That way you don't have to.
That's generally what we do, Tom. We eat before we go, man, because, those snacks and drinks in the movie theater are just outrageous.
Crazy.
So they don't get my sympathy when it's already a damn near a tank of gas to just go watch a 90-minute movie.
This is true, Jimmy, and I guess that's for two people. So yeah, that's
quite just imagine we're a family.
I would say this in terms of production of films in the United States. I think the biggest issue that you have is an extremely a lack of quality in script and or production of films. I mean, we've talked about this several times. Most of what we see on the big screen is, quite frankly, very worn out, outdated, and copied from prior years. I mean, the reality of it is there seems to be a lack of imagination and creativity, and a very narrow range.
They just keep recycling bad film. I mean, Karate Kid is, I don't know, 5th, 6th, Fast and Furious 11, 12.
It's
Friday
ridiculous.
13th is on the 20th version.
It's ridiculous.
They just keep recycling these old storylines. That's why Hollywood should reach out to who? VJR Stewart. I'm trying to inject some new storylines.
Unfortunately, there are certain stories they don't want to see on the big screen, Jimmy. They want to recycle everything from
the Black Force Bullet love story time. They don't want to see that.
They don't want to see that. They don't want to see black love. They don't want to see black characters that actually have intelligent script. They want to see the same old crap that they've been generating since the very first films in the 1920s when Woodrow Wilson was president. And so, reality of it is, they are actually suffering from their own failure of leading in creative artistry in terms of the type of script that you see on the stage. This Sinners film, I think, is just eclipsed 300 million, so to speak. And I don't know everything about it, but the reality of it is there's a lack of creativity and imagination. The reality of it is there is, unfortunately, Jimmy, a very narrow range of the types of films that they want to see on the big screen.
Well, I'm going to do my part, Tom, because there will be no more white literature coming out of this person. So in the future, all future books will star black people and be very Afrocentric. So with no apologies.
All right, Jimmy. In that case, we only have one other story.
What's our last story this last
That was
minute or two?
D.L. Hughley, who had some criticism from Saquon Barkley in his visit to the White House. Jimmy, I know this is something that you had found. I actually hadn't even seen it, didn't know anything about it. I had to do some scrounging around, and it ended up coming up on TMZ. But
Let me ask you, Tom.
Yes.
Was Saquon the only Philadelphia chicken head?
No, there were
the White
14.
House?
There were 14 players who did not go to the White House visit, and they asked him about
ones
it.
who went to the White House get called out who were black?
Say what now?
Did any of the
I
other
don't know.
players?
I have no idea. I mean, that from what I understand, they asked D.L. Hughley a question about if he had any issue with the 14 players who ended up skipping the trip. And he made a comment about Saquon Barkley and his issues because he did make a trip. And I guess the reason that he's a star is because he's one of the most visible players on the NFL Philadelphia Eagles team as the star running back. And the reality of it, he made a couple of statements about his concerns with someone who, as president, has rolled back a lot of what he considers to be Black history, whitewashing Black history, whether you're talking about on military websites and or doing things that may potentially have a negative impact on the African American Museum, Smithsonian in D.C. And he also had an issue, of course, with his baby mama, who happens to be Caucasian, by the way, no issue with that. But the fact that in some of her past tweets, she had been using the N-word and she wasn't a gold digger, but she ain't dealing with no broke, and Saquon ain't nowhere close to broke. So he did have some issues with that.
With her using the N-word, Tom, the sacred N-word,
Yeah.
if she wasn't white, if she was black, it'd be okay?
Say what now?
If she was black, it'd be okay?
No, I don't know that it would be okay if she were black, but the fact that she happens to be Caucasian and was using the N-word, yeah, he took offense to that, which most people do.
He's used the N-word, the sacred N-word, in his stand-up.
Mm-hmm.
So it's okay for him to use it, but nobody else can use it?
I'm not saying it's okay for him to use it, but again,
he had a problem with her using
it. He had a problem. More so, the focus was on his trip to the White House than it was his baby mama.
Okay, so I'm pretty sure 14 members don't make up the whole Philadelphia chicken head team. So there are a lot of other black players there, white players, and whatever other groups they have who went to the White House, which is a big honor to be invited to go to the White House. I've never been. I've never gone to the tour, so it's not impossible to get in the White House. But if I was invited by Biden or Obama, even though I don't agree with their politics, I'd take the invitation. I want to see the Lincoln bedroom. I want to see where the desk. I want to see where it all happened, where Bill Clinton and Monica Lewinsky were taking care of their business. The Lincoln bedroom that Obama was renting out and pimping out, him and Biden. I want to see it all. The pictures, the statues.
And I guess what he's trying to say is that that's fine and dandy. It's just a political statement, that he made, and he took exception to the fact because you have someone who has erased historical references to the Tuskegee Airmen, historical references to Harriet Tubman, historical references to, many of our heroes and sheroes. And, he just said, look, I mean, this is a photo op. If you want to go see those places, you can see those places anytime. But, we do understand that it is
you do realize that this happens when Obama was president. He took down statues of bust of Winston Churchill. And he took down other people who happened to be white that he didn't like or agree with. He took down Republican portraits out of the main hallway and replaced them. So this happens with administrations. Right. But somehow, if a Democrat does it, there's no big deal. It's just par for the road. But if a Republican does any of it, when the next administration, whoever wins that, if a Democrat wins it, then they can restore whatever they deal you think was lost.
You're correct. You're absolutely correct.
So it's just a matter of whoever's in power can do and make the choices that they want if it's left up to them. So Trump is not the biggest black advocate out there. So nobody should be surprised.
He ain't a black guy. He's not an advocate for black history.
Well, he did stand up for black schools, Tom, and he has tried to help black people, thinking that they were going to vote
like
for
the Central Park Five.
Okay, well, who else didn't get that wrong?
You know, maybe at some point in time
How
you can say,
okay?
but maybe saying that you got it wrong might be a start.
Well, one of the black folks who accused the Duke lacrosse players of rape, only to find out that she lied and made the whole thing up. How many of those admitted that they were wrong and that they were wrong?
They're not president.
Well, it doesn't matter. You have to be. Only the president.
It makes a huge difference when you have that much power.
Only the president. When the president makes a mistake about social, only the president is the only one that has to step up.
No, he's not. He's not the only one. But he's not the only one. But
last time I checked, Tom, there are a lot of folks on the left who made a noise every time a black person claimed that they've been wrong, only to find out that they've lied about it. None of them have come back and said, "Oh, I was wrong," and apologize. Not one. But somehow they want to hold the orange man to a higher standard simply because he's president.
Right.
I think it's
you're exactly right. Because he is president, you do hold him to a higher standard. You do.
All right. Well, he's not. He doesn't. I'll give you a little insight about Trump. He never ever admits that he's wrong about anything.
Of course.
Nothing.
Of course.
So being that or any other thing.
We're very aware of that. We're very aware of that.
Yeah, he's never going to admit to any wrongdoing.
We're very aware of that.
So
there are some presidents who have, but he ain't one of them.
Which one?
There are presidents who
Tom, there have been no presidents admitted they're wrong
about nothing.
We had Obama who admitted that America was wrong, but not him personally. I don't know any president who admitted any kind of wrongdoing. And I study history pretty closely. But if you know one, next week, go ahead and research them, and then we'll come back and talk about it. But with that being said, Tom, I'm going to give you the last word. We need to close out.
We want to thank everybody for joining us this evening. It's a few minutes after the show, but we definitely hope that you have enjoyed this evening and this show. We have packed in a lot of content today. We apologize for not getting to the NBA playoffs, but since we're at the very beginning this week, we'll deal with it next week because they'll still be in the middle of the second round.
Yes, they will. Well, this is a good playoff run. All four visiting teams on the road won. So if you haven't been watching, you're missing out.
Exactly. And the reality of it is this is what it looks like. Jimmy, the Nuggets surprised the Thunder in their win on the first place. In first place, the Warriors put the wood on the Timberwolves last night and went up 1-0. The Pacers have surprised the number one East seed Cavaliers and are up 2-0 on them. And then, of course, the Knicks surprised the Celtics last, I guess, was that yesterday. And
Tom, that Denver game, what was the name? Is it Porter? Porter.
Yeah.
Oh, man. I mean, that was masterful for how they pulled that out, three-pointer, to take the win. And then the Cleveland game, same thing. Had it under control, Tom, and just couldn't hold on to it. New York taking down Boston. I mean, these were some good games. I normally don't watch if the Mavericks not playing. But I've been watching these because these guys are actually playing their hearts out.
They are, and hopefully that leads up to a very, very good final.
Okay, well, and then next week, Tom, we got to answer the question, is LeBron done?
Oh, you know what, Jimmy? I wanted to talk about that, and I completely forgot.
Let's start the show off next week talking about LeBron.
Wait a minute. Is LeBron done with what?
Well, I mean, he only had 4 championships. So all this talk about being the GOAT, you need to be at least 5. Jordan has 6.
Some people already call LeBron the GOAT.
No, Tom, come on, give me a break.
Some people do.
Boston Celtic players, we have 10 and 11. Come on. You got to have at least 5 or 6 to get in that conversation.
Okay.
He's an honorable mention GOAT, Tom.
The Lakers got embarrassed. They were one loss short of being completely humiliated last week by the Minnesota Timberwolves, Jimmy. LeBron, Luka, or J.J. Redick, who do you point to first?
Okay, well, we'll answer that question. And then the bigger question is LeBron done? This conversation about being the GOAT, because last time I checked, Jordan never got beat this bad.
No, he didn't. No, he didn't. All right, so that's our next week conversation?
That's our next week conversation.
All right, folks. In that case, tune in next week because if it's Wednesday night,
it's Black Men Speak.
Good night, everyone.